Welcome back once again to your favorite first responder podcast here. Today is a very special day for a couple reasons. One, we have somebody from the East Coast, not from here, not local, not anywhere close. So this is amazing for us. Two, this is going to be our first zoomed in remote podcast. This is how high scale we're getting. We're expanding. Real deal podcasters now. This is going to be amazing. So this is going to be episode 30 of Before the Tones Drop. Myself, Phil Marchand, once again with me to my right here, the man with the master plan. Of course, doesn't skip leg day. The ladies love the biceps, Mr. Devin Shipper. As always, and our brother in arms, thank you for your service, Ben Moorhead. We will hope for you a safe deployment and a safe return at some point. And of course, the man behind the screen, putting all this together, testing all this stuff, making sure this works, is our producer, Ryan Baker. So thanks, Rab, for squaring this away. This is going to be amazing. So with us today, we have Battalion Chief Ed Schwartz. From Baltimore County. So, Chief, we're gonna get right into this because I know you're kind of on a tight schedule too and stuff. Which I appreciate you coming in and doing this with us today. It's an amazing opportunity for us, and we appreciate it a lot. So, kind of want to just kind of break it down. Who you are, what's your story, what's your vibe? Let's just kind of run it down.
All right, thank you for having me on. I was a bit taken back when Ryan asked me to do this, but this is awesome, and I really appreciate you guys taking interest in me, which I never thought anybody would. That's pretty cool. But again, my name's Ed Schwartz, Jr., and I got to clarify that because my dad was in the department, and if I don't do that, then people get confused sometimes. Although he's retired 15 years ago, so it's been quite a legacy trying to run behind him and try and keep up. So. But yeah, I'm a battalion chief of Baltimore County Fire Department. I've been doing this for about 22 years, along with about 27 years in the Air National Guard or in the Air Force, and then between active duty and Guard. So I'm a field battalion chief. I have a normal shift in a normal battalion, but I also take care of our USAR team, and I manage that program, and also run our honor guard. So. And that's a loose term because I'm captain that really does all the stuff for the honor guard. I'm just kind of the figurehead that has to go to the chief and ask for stuff. But yeah, I live right outside of Baltimore, Maryland, about 25 miles north of the city, right on the Maryland PA line. Been here for most of my life, except for my active duty time. And I love the job. It's been something that I always wanted to do, and this was I finally achieved getting into the fire department, doing a lot of that stuff. And I never thought that I would have gotten this far. If somebody would have told me 15 years ago, you're going to be a battalion chief and doing all this stuff, I told them they were crazy. I was happy riding in the backseat of a fire engine, but things changed. So,
as sometimes they do. So, did you? So, what town did you grow up in? Where are you actually from?
I grew up in a town called Hampstead, Maryland, which is in Carroll County, just one county over from where it's actually only about 10 miles from where I live right now. Grew up there. It's a farming rural community. It's kind of grown up more suburban now, but living there for most of my life. I started out as a junior volunteer at the Hampstead Fire Company at 11. They had their own rank structure. It was really cool. It was a whole thing. So you could be operations, you could be the captain of the junior volunteers, or you could go into like an administrative role. And I don't think I really made any progress doing that stuff. Again, I was just happy to be in there. So, Maryland and Carroll County are kind of cool. Is that at 16 you can go to the Maryland Fire Rescue Institute, take classes, and then you can start riding. So at 16 years old, I was riding a fire engine and riding an ambulance and doing all that sort of stuff. So it was a really cool
awesome
segue into being what they call a real firefighter, real emergency responder.
Sure. Chief, did your dad volley before getting on, that kind of thing? Is the volley in the bloodline too?
Yeah, he did. And when I'm a twin, so when my sister and I were born, he kind of backed off a lot of that. Trying to take care of
naturally.
two kids at infant stage is kind of difficult. So he backed off from that. But I'm third generation firefighter. So my grandfather was a battalion commander he worked in Baltimore City for about 40 years. My dad's side of the family, all of my uncles, except for one, and my dad's side, and my dad were all in the fire department, either Baltimore County or Baltimore City. On my mom's side, my grandfather was the captain of a volunteer fire company for years. And he did that. And my uncle and my cousin all did the same thing. So it's pretty cool. Third generation on that side. And then my one cousin, actually two of my cousins are in the same department that I am. We all got hired at the same time. We're in through the same recruit class, which was incredible. That we didn't get hazed a little bit more because of that, but we did.
Naturally.
The worst part was because I had been volunteering and been involved with the fire service for as long as I had before I got there. Everybody knew me, and all of a sudden I was the target for all the crap jobs that had to get done through the academy. And
your recruit class was praising you for being there, weren't they?
I was the target of harassment, so but that's okay because I made it a little bit easier on everybody else, so that was fine. But it was a good time.
Very cool. Deep roots then out there.
Chief, do you see that more? Is that like kind of, I mean, we have, SHIP being a good example and stuff as far as people with deep fire service roots, but usually it's grandpa, great grandpa, dad, maybe a brother, something like, a cousin here or there. But I mean, you are like, you're the fingers of your fire service. Like, I mean, you got roots and everything. I mean, is that more, do you see that a lot on the East Coast? Is that not uncommon for that much family involvement?
It depends. There's within our department, we have a 1,200 person department, and there's family names that stick out. There's probably 5 or 6 family names in a department that have at least one child, sometimes more, and then they marry somebody else in the department, and all of a sudden that family tree keeps growing, and it's really cool. There's been a push over the last couple of years to get rid of the nepotism. There were some problems years ago with some certain people that their family members were legacy members that had been there forever, and their performance really wasn't where it probably should be, and they were trying to ride that name. I noticed that early on, and that was one of the things that I was like, I'm never going to let that happen. I can't be that person. So that was one of the things that I had to personally overcome and try and work harder than the guy next to me, just so I didn't become the known as the crap bag that was just riding on the coattails of somebody else.
Not that I would know anything about that, but yeah, you're talking because of the unfortunate few, the whole legacy and family thing kind of gets murky and clouded together. It's kind of unfortunate, but that's kind of how the fire service is, right? You can ruin your reputation in 2 seconds, but it takes 15 years to build it, right?
100%.
So totally know where you're coming from with that. And it's already just looking at your rap sheet here, if you want to call it that. Looks like you did a fine job of putting your own name out there and stuff. So that's commendable in itself. So
thank you.
Hey, Chief, so going from then, so fire service, I mean, that was like, I mean, as ever since you're a little boy, like, I want to be a fireman. That's, what I want to do. So what was kind of your path, as far as high school? Because you also have an extensive military career and stuff. So, we're finished in high school and stuff. And what's the plan after that, after graduation?
I was a terrible high school student. I freely admit that. I barely graduated. But I got to talking to some people that were between the Coast Guard and the Air Force, and I was really torn on which one I wanted to do. I had family members that had been in the Coast Guard, and they're like, you can go do damage control, and they do firefighting, which was cool. And I ended up going in the Air Force because they had a dedicated fire protection program. And I figured that if I was going to become a career firefighter at some point, I either needed to go to college or I needed to get some military background behind me. So I enlisted, did a 4-year stint with the Air Force, was stationed out at Kirtland Air Force Base in Albuquerque, New Mexico for about 3.5 years after getting through fire training and all that sort of stuff. It was a good department. I didn't care for the area. The best thing that came out of that place was I met my wife of 23 years, and we're still married. So that's been,
Congratulations.
thank you, thank you. It's been a bunch of roller coaster rides with deployments and going back into guard and doing all this different stuff. But that when I got out of active duty, I didn't really have a job, so I went back to doing private ambulance, which was I don't
Oh my goodness.
yeah, I don't recommend that. But it was a good paying job, and it kept the lights on until I could get hired with the career department. But I got into the department about a little less than a year after I got out of active duty, so it worked out really, really well. I couldn't believe it was that quick. But went in as an EMT in our department. We run a combination fire department of EMS and fire. Heavier on the EMS part, obviously, as everybody else is. But they told us in the academy, we got blue gear. We didn't get turnout gear or anything like that. They said, we don't care if you're certified or trained. You're going to ride that medic unit for 2 years. Just get used to it. So I did. At 2 years, we get off probation. And then I was allowed to take the bridge program and go over and be a firefighter. So then I had to have that firefighter in my title for a couple of years and then be able to promote up from there. And the medic time that I did was great in that, one, I learned every district that I worked very intimately. I knew every street. I knew how to get to every hospital and how to get out to all the major roads. But two, it was interesting problems that you'd have to solve. And that was kind of the basis of everything going forward, was problem solving. It really wasn't, helping people's great and you want to be able to do that, but problem solving is what keeps you on your game and allows you to excel a little bit more.
Yeah, that critical thinking drive starts kicking in and developing then real heavy if you're, were they running a medic and an EMT on those rigs then?
Yes.
Or was it BLS or, okay.
Yeah, it's a medic and EMT for the most part. We've tried to maintain that staffing model. Over the last couple of years, it's gotten way harder in order to keep an ALS provider on there. So we've downgraded some, but we have EMS supervisors that are running around and they upgrade our medic units as they need to.
Cool. Very cool.
So your guys, and we can really dive into the department stuff, but in a little bit. But your guys, so you get hired, and so you go through an academy, but then you're riding a box for, that's all you're doing when you come to work for a couple of years yet, eh? And then you get to go, and then you still have to bridge to be a firefighter.
Okay.
Yeah, this was a cost saving measure that they took early on. So they hired half of our class. Half of our class already had EMT. The other half didn't. So those that didn't had to go through and retake or take the course. And then those of us who did spent more time getting IV technician, going through evac a little bit more intense, and then all the other hazardous materials operations, all that sort of stuff. But yeah, they gave us blue gear and said, you're not getting structural firefighting gear for at least 2 years.
And that just, go ahead.
Do you guys still utilize that same model?
Right now we're mixed. So right now we're running a EMT firefighter class. They're about to graduate the end of next month. After that will be an EMT only class, and then after that will be a firefighter EMT class or EMT firefighter class. So it's kind of mixed. They try to shake it up a little bit so they can get bodies in seats as quickly as they can.
Sure.
But a lot of it's budget time, because a 6-month academy is 40 bodies that we can't use in the field that we're paying for. So the quicker we can get them through the academy, the quicker we can get them on the street. And then the bridge program is basically you take your fire classes on your own time, or if you already have them, and then you go through a week-long, it's basically a mini academy. You just run through skills just to make sure you know what they're doing, what our expectations are in the department, how our SOPs work, and that sort of stuff.
But I mean, even now, even from when you got hired, but even now, I mean, that's the standard. Is you get hired by Baltimore County, you're going to go through the academy, you're going to ride a box for, a year, 2 years, whatever, based on staffing, and then you go on the structure side. See, so our guy said, the floaters that bounce on and off the medic unit every now and again, they don't have to. They
still got it pretty good, don't
they still got it pretty good.
There's so many questions that are developing in my head from this, but when you're doing that time on that medic unit. You said you got hired, you get put right on the medic unit, even out of academy. So during that academy time, are you doing the protocols, that kind of thing, or getting that hammered out?
Ride time, things like that?
Yeah, protocol updates. We had a 2-week internship time that we had to go out and ride with other people in the field. And it was interesting because we weren't supposed to ride the engine, and I showed up my first day for my first internship, and the medic was out. So they got a medical call. The engine's getting ready to go out the door, and the captain throws me in the back seat and says, "You're going with us."
Yes.
And, yeah, well, it was great. 3 hours later, when I finally got off after we bounced around from 4 or 5 different calls, then they're like, "All right, well, now you get on the ambulance and stay there." So
wait, no,
like,
I tasted it. I tasted it. I had it.
it was a cool tease, but that's all it was.
Do you guys utilize your ambulance crews on the fire scene at all to do fire-related tasks?
Every once in a while, we will. Right now, we've started a program where they have we'll have an ALS and a BLS unit at least on every structure fire. It's really up to the battalion chief as to what is going to end up happening with that crew. Generally, we keep them out for rehab and then medical, and they also do our residence assistance program when we need to. But for the most part, we try to keep them outside as a transport unit in case one of us goes down or gets hurt or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, as long as you know what, let's just stay on the department as long as we're here and stuff. We're getting some questions, and then we'll circle back to the military stuff and everything. So if you're okay with that, Chief, because as long as we're here. So Baltimore County said about 1,200 personnel, which is that's I think it's pretty big. That's a pretty big department. So what's kind of the I guess the makeup of that as far as stations, engine companies, truck companies, dedicated rescues, things like that. What's kind of like your breakdown?
Okay. So I'll start with, we are a combination department, but we're not the traditional combination department. We have volunteers, but the volunteers have their own stations. So on fire calls, we all intermingle. We all operate under the same fire chief. We're all good. Outside of all the administrative stuff, the volunteers have that association, and they all answer to themselves. They're their own corporations. And we really, on the career side, have very little to do with the administration of their departments within the county. And there's 27 volunteer companies in the county, and there's 29 career stations in the county. So combined force of everybody is about 3,000, give or take.
Wow. So yeah, a couple thousand volleys, and then your 1,200 members. That's wow. It's a lot.
It's 29 engine companies. We have 8 district officer, EMS district officers, 7 ladder trucks, which all but one are the tiller trucks, tractor drones. We have one
TDA, baby.
We have a USAR unit, a hazmat unit, 3 air units, 35 medic units that run around. Actually, I pulled this information up last night because I wasn't sure. But the medic units were 123,000 calls last year, almost 124. Total call volume for the department for last year was 239,000 calls.
Man.
Whew. Whew.
What's the area, I guess, square mile area that you guys covered?
610 square miles. With about 200
that's
miles.
A lot of runs in a 600 square mile radius.
Yeah, and that's the whole county. Yeah,
that is the whole county. And
what
the big difference is Baltimore City. We sit around Baltimore City like a giant upside down horseshoe. The city sits right in the middle, but they're their own complete jurisdiction within the county. Many, like Chicago is within Cook County, and Cook County kind of takes care of the city. We don't have any of that right now, even though they've been talking about it for years. Baltimore County and Baltimore City they're completely separate entities. So
as far as your medic units don't respond in Baltimore City proper, just the county.
Not without a mutual aid call. No.
Yeah. Sure.
Do you know the size difference between the county and the city as far as personnel or even runs or anything like that?
The city has about 1,500 people. And I'm not sure about their station numbers and all that. They were right around the number of fire stations that we have, with more people. They're support section's a lot bigger because for us, like our rehab unit and all that sort of stuff, that all comes from volunteers. Along with our air units, we run those. It's basically cross staffing between an engine company. The city has dedicated folks that run their hazmat. They've run their air units. They run all that support stuff.
Sure.
We're still doing a little cross staffing on that.
Sure.
And your guys' shift schedule, are you doing the 24/72s? Or what's
No.
your shift schedule look like?
We are actually doing 10s and 14s, so I'm in between my night works right now. So it's 2 10-hour days, 2 14-hour nights, and then 4 off.
Okay.
But we also have
Does
we'll throw in there,
I'm sorry.
we have
Sorry
some the critical staffing units that are we call them M shift. So we have ones that are day work only. They run Monday through Friday, just our normal day work. And then there's another shift that's they call it the M shift, M1 and 2. They run 7 to 3 and 3 to 11. And there's 4 of those within the county. And they do that Monday through Friday.
Okay.
So do you guys with that 10s and 14s and stuff, do you guys like trade a lot and stuff and swap shifts so they're working at 24 straight and have another time off and stuff?
So we have a fair amount of people that do that, but for the most part, a lot of people live pretty close and they were perfectly happy with doing the 10s and 14s. The couple folks in the union were trying to push on going to a 24-hour schedule a couple of years ago, maybe 2 years ago. And there was such pushback from the main body of the department that it just kind of got squashed. It never really went anywhere. I would prefer it, but that's me. Between the Air Force and the county, I was used to working that 24-hour shift, and it was easier for me to be able to manage things. And I really never thought about it very much until I made captain, and I'm trying to get inspections done and do hydrants and do all these different tasks. And at least on the west side, with traffic being as bad as it is, our relief times are 7 and 5. But at 3 o'clock on the west side, people are showing up for their night work because they don't want to deal with traffic. So they'll come in at 3 o'clock and they're leaving at 5 o'clock. So it's person for relief.
Yeah. Which, and with the shift schedule, firemen hate 2 things, they hate change and they hate the way things are. So, I mean, that's, there's always talk with the, around here in Iowa, pretty much everybody's either a 24/48 or a California, or there's some departments, quite a few now in Iowa that are switching to the 48/96. So, and that's getting some, there's some research and some popularity there that guys are really starting to like that 48/96. So, that 10/14, I'm trying to wrap my brain's still trying to.
Well, I got a really small brain, so I can only fit so much. So
Yeah.
my hippocampus right now is just kind of like, don't let that in. I can only keep what I got. But
Working a 48 though, when you're running 200,000.
that doesn't.
That's
Insane.
insane.
That seems
That's
like
I was
it's
gonna.
for the bird.
I need to break down that just the EMS calls per 35 medic units and see how many, like what their each unit is running per shift.
I'm sure we
break
could do
it
a
out.
quick number crunch.
But
with that,
there's
it's a lot.
10 hours, how many
a lot.
calls are going on an average, and because in 10 hours, if you're hitting 8 runs in that 10 hours, that's
pack your lunch.
That's crazy busy, after paperwork and transport and everything. I mean, that's beating you up a little bit.
Well, and call volume's a small part of that percentage number of what actually counts, because our hospitals are so overwhelmed. You may go to the hospital and sit there for an hour or 2 waiting on a bed. So a day work, you may only run 4 calls, but you weren't in the firehouse at all.
No.
Came in, got on the unit, and you were gone. So we use our brush units. They're jokingly called brush units because they have a pump on them. They're the pickup trucks, but they're the medic unit transport relief crews. So people throw their gear on there, they go relieve the medic units at the hospital, and then they come back. They don't really get used a whole lot for brush fires.
Yeah.
Okay.
Did you mention how many battalions you have?
So we're struggling right now. So back in the late 90s, they reduced it down. We only have 3 battalions. So West, Central, and East. So the deputy chief actually runs the 1st battalion, and then there's a battalion chief on each side. But there's 8 battalion chiefs and 4 deputies, and we handle the majority of it. And then we have captains that will act if one of us is off.
Sure. Your main role as battalion, are you doing command on your district and things like that, or what really is your job then?
Well, it depends on the day. Sometimes I feel like I'm just more of a paperwork jockey than anything. But yeah, so we get dispatched on all reported vehicle rescues and structure fires. Other than that, we really don't go, even though there's probably times where we should. Outside of that, we do any vehicles in the buildings or building collapses that we have the authority through the county code to placard a building as condemned. So,
Oh, cool.
so we'll run out and take care of that sort of stuff. But my typical day is I go in, I do staffing for the day, make sure that we don't have any overtime needs that the station officers can't meet. So any officer callbacks, I have to make them. Outside of that, station officers in charge of going through the callback and overtime list and getting people to work. And then our first night, so last night when I came in, I set up all the staffing through details and overtime for the following week. So next week, I went in there and approved vacation, do all that sort of stuff, and then run calls as they come through. But
Okay.
we're also the first line managers of the department, so we were in charge of disciplinary cases, some investigations, um, accident investigations, that sort of stuff. We do all that.
Very good.
What is your, I guess, the command structure on the, the firehouse and the rigs look and stuff with as far as, I mean, you mentioned captains. So, is there a captain that
your rank system.
yeah. So is there like, a house captain, a captain per rig? Do you guys have lieutenants? Are your driving positions, are those like a sergeant or an FEO kind of, I mean, what's your rank structure within the stations?
So each station has a captain and a lieutenant assigned to each shift, which is kind of unique because there's times where the lieutenant ends up riding as a firefighter in the back seat. But the lieutenants are the ones that get detailed out. If there's a vacancy for an officer, they'll get detailed to fill that vacancy. Originally, when that concept was brought about probably in the 70s, that lieutenant was supposed to fall in with the volunteers and help be basically a liaison officer with them and take them in on fires and do all that sort of stuff. Over the last 40 years, that stuff has kind of faded away. So there's been talk over years, the last couple of years. There was a union contract last year that failed. They were trying to reduce it down to one captain per station and have lieutenants bump up. And ultimately that contract negotiation failed. It's still stuff that's in progress. We all know that it's a problem to have a officer that's making, $140,000 a year riding behind a captain making $160,000 a year. It just doesn't make sense. But the other problem is that we don't have a house captain, so it's not like the senior captain's in charge. If somebody wants to change something on the apparatus, all four captains have to agree, and we're just stuck in a quagmire at times of things just staying the way that they are. Other than that, we have our drivers are called FADOs, fire apparatus driver operators. It's a promoted position. They have to test, they have to do all that sort of stuff, and they are equivalent to what also we have is called a fire specialist. Fire specialists are in charge of company level training, and they also do company level inspections. So they go out in a district, they do mercantile inspections and do all that sort of stuff. Below that is EMT firefighters, and then all the gamut of probationary EMTs, EMT firefighters, and all that below them. And then above me is you have battalion chiefs that are above captains, and then you have deputy chief. We also have bureau chiefs, and they're in charge of safety, logistics, all that sort of stuff. EMS has their own, and then two assistant chiefs and a fire chief. And that's pretty much our upper rank structure. We're really, really thin. We had a company called Facets come out a couple of years ago, did a study, and we are really, really lean on the management side of where we should be. And they've been trying to find the funding through the county, and it just hasn't materialized yet.
Sure.
Well, it's hard when you're paying 1,200, uniform guys and stuff. I mean, that's, the fire department, it's a black hole you throw money into. I mean, staffing is always a thing, and stuff breaks and you got to replace things. I mean, that's a lot of apparatus it's just a ton of money. So, so with that, so do you guys run, I mean, I guess what's your shifts, your platoons? You guys, a two platoon, 3 platoon, 4, I think you mentioned 4. So, and then with that, does each, with the captains at the stations, does every rig has a captain and a lieutenant assigned to it on the same shift? Is that what I'm understanding?
So the truck companies have a lieutenant that's assigned to them. All the engine companies have a lieutenant and a captain assigned. So it was supposed to decrease the amount of overtime for people. And like I said, it was supposed to help the volunteers over, years ago. But like I said, that model's kind of fallen away. So the station where my office is, they're a single engine company. So they have a lieutenant and a captain assigned. Down the road from me is a truck company, or engine and truck company. And they have a captain for the engine, and then they have a lieutenant for the truck. So
Okay.
On each, so like that's where I'm trying to like
on each shift.
with your platoons goes to like, yeah, on each shift, but like how does your, because you're working 10s and 14s and stuff, but how do you like we work 24/48, so we have we have three shift, first, second, and third shift. So like in each of our stations has one captain, or the double houses, I should say, each rig has one captain and two lieutenants assigned. So the captain's whatever shift they fall on and stuff. And then the senior captain is the house captain for the, at the station, especially the double station. But one captain, two lieutenants per on because we run three shifts. So I guess how many shifts, I guess, or platoons do you guys have?
So we have four, the normal shifts plus the
Plus
critical
your
unit.
weird floating one. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
So A, B, C, and D shift, each one of those
Okay.
has a captain and a lieutenant for
Captain
each
and
engine.
lieutenant. Okay.
Okay.
That makes sense. Okay. So
Yep.
now I get it. Yeah. Because I'm like 10 hours and it's like a captain. So then after 10 hours, then the next officer comes in, and then the next officer, and just as the wheels keep spinning.
So then your riding numbers, is it 4-man engine companies then?
4-man engine and truck. The only thing that we cross staff right now is our hazmat and our USAR, and the air units. So if we get a call for the air unit, that engine where it's housed, we'll have to either drop somebody down, or they'll just take the engine and go with it.
Sure.
What you guys still use 10 codes out there? Or are you guys all NIMS compliant?
I would say we're 99% NIMS compliant. We don't use 10 codes though.
I was like, you get a 1077 or 1075 out there still? No.
Nah, we're not FDNY. I mean, some of our guys think they are.
Yeah. So what's well, we call it a 4-tap, but what's a working structure fire response?
So we've actually just changed it in our recent SOP update. They changed it from working fire to rapid intervention task force. So you get two major pieces. So either you get one engine in a truck or whatever's closest. So you may get up with two engines. And then you'll get an additional medic unit, additional EMS supervisor, the rehab unit, and the air unit on the working fire dispatch. But our typical first alarm assignment is 4 engines, 2 trucks, battalion chief, and medic unit, and EMS supervisor.
Okay. That's 4.
One more engine than us.
Yeah.
And riding 4 guaranteed on each rig.
Yeah. So just, that's a ton of,
that's
I
awesome.
guess because you guys do alarms. I mean, technically we do alarms, but we just don't,
you ask for what you want, basically.
Yeah. You just
when it's
an extra engine
from a second alarm, it's ask for what you want.
Yeah. Just send me another engine, or we're out of rigs. So first alarm. So then I guess, so your first alarm. So then you get on scene. Yep. Smoke showing. We got a working structure fire. So then you get your additional alarm, or your rescue task force, or whatever that comes in, and with the additional stuff, and then you just add bodies from there. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
Cool.
And then, outside of the rapid intervention task force, we can still call for a second alarm, and it slows our dispatch down because they got to go backwards. They got to go back, hit the rapid intervention task force, and then they got to do the second alarm.
Okay.
And then anything above and beyond that.
Yeah. So just just same response for just an automatic fire alarm then?
No, our for the most part, unless it's a high risk building, our automatic fire alarms are all single engine responses.
One engine.
Yep.
Non-emergency. Non-emergency.
Non-emergency. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Nice. And then EMS and stuff. So engine company or another fire company goes with the medic units on EMS calls?
Not always. So for the run-of-the-mill medical call, 6 subject or whatever, the medics go on their own. The only time that the engines will go, if they go more than third due on an EMS transport unit, or is if they call it a medical box, so cardiac arrest, unconscious person, those calls like that will get an engine and an EMS supervisor added right away.
Sure.
So what was kind of your career like coming through the department and stuff? So you got, hired 22 years ago and stuff, rode the box for a while. And so kind of what was your progression through? What's, I mean, are you a truck guy, you an engine guy? What's your favorite part of town to work through? I mean, are you guys out there? Is it West Coast? Are you a pipeman, a stepman? Is that what is it?
Yeah.
The backstep.
The backstep. Yeah.
Backstep. Yeah. So I was trying to get off the box. So I went to the hazmat company. And I had a really great captain there, and he got me involved in doing all kinds of stuff hazmat. That's actually where I got cleared on the engine, was at that company. So I did that for a little while. I loved doing hazmat. It was again going back to that problem solving, challenging thing.
What's wrong with hazmat? Hazmat's the best.
I can see the look on Ryan's face right now. But it was always a challenge, and it got me involved in doing a lot of other stuff that the people that came through my recruit class weren't able to get into. So we'd end up on tankers, rollovers. We had a fire to chem lab at a college, stuff like that. All right, you're going in a suit, you're going inside. Cool. All right, great. From there, I always tried to stay at busier companies after that. So once I got cleared on the fire side, the west side of the county has been, they called it the triangle for a while. So it was engine 3, engine and truck 18, and engine 2 was the fire triangle. For the longest time, they were the 3 busiest companies in the county, and they had the most fire service. So I tried to stick around there for as long as I could, and then I did that for a while. Ended
Chasing
up
fire, love it.
chase fire all the time. So, and then as I was volunteering, I was still volunteering in the county, which is like, again, being a separate thing. I could stay close by. I don't know how my wife put up with me, because I'd leave work, go to the firehouse, and then go back to work. But yeah. So, but yeah, I was chasing fire for a while. Once I made lieutenant, I ended up down at a fire station called Halethorpe, and they're right close to BWI Airport. So we ran mutual aid with a lot of times with them on alert calls with the aircraft. Pretty slow station, comparably to the other ones that I had worked at. But it gave me a lot of time to study. So I went down there after I made lieutenant. Bounced around there, made my way back to a busy house at Station 2. Loved it there. Started studying for captain, made that while I was deployed. And then, and then they stuck me at the slowest station in the county, which is 5 miles from where I live right now. So one of the slowest career stations. I think on the list here, they're second from the bottom. They ran 585 calls last year. And I was
for the year?
For the year. I was going stir crazy. I couldn't wait to get out of there.
That just means you live in a decent area, huh?
Well, I live in the middle of nowhere. So,
Perfect.
Compared to where you guys are, it's probably, a major city, but the Walmart's 6 miles away. So instead
Perfect. There you go.
5 minutes.
The anchor.
So from there, I made it back to Station 3 as the captain on A shift. I loved it there. I was getting frustrated at a battalion chief at the time that him and I didn't see eye to eye. And I said, the only way I can make change is to move up. So I started studying, took the test, and made battalion chief on the first time. So
wow. Be the change you want to see, right, Chief?
Yeah, well, it worked for some things.
Some days, and then there's some days where you wish, I wish I was
take
just
the victories day by day.
I wish I was that dude on the back and just sitting on the back and just riding and just chasing fire again. I'll work as you're promoting shifts, finding us out as a new
more money,
lieutenant.
more problems is for real.
Yep. As a lieutenant, and then when you promote up to captain
and
AC, and we've talked about that there's days you work overtime or a trade and you're on the back, and
I'm looking back at Evan going, God dang it.
Yeah, like, dude, I'm so happy back here, just smile, just looking around, no worries, or driving, going back to being a driver. Driving was the best. I love being a driver and stuff. So sometimes it's you want to enact change, you want to build your people up, or it's like, I don't like the way this guy's doing it, I know I can do it better, I want to make things better. And then you get to that position, and then sometimes you're like, I could do that, but sometimes it's just easier being on the back,
Well, the way I tell my guys is I can only control my bubble. So that's the battalion that I have. Everything else, if they push orders down from headquarters and I got to do it, then that's what it's got to be. But
Sure.
everything else is within my bubble, and I got a great battalion. I got 8 stations in my battalion, which is really a lot. That's just career stations, but I have some great crews that are in there, and those guys will bend over backwards and get everything done. And it doesn't matter what the conditions are; they just do it.
Awesome.
When you're talking about promotions, do you have to promote in order? So do you have to be a driver to be a lieutenant, lieutenant to be captain, or can you go from lieutenant to battalion?
No, so you don't have to be a driver or a specialist. You can go from an EMT firefighter to lieutenant, but everything else after that, you have to work your way up through each
Okay.
rank.
Do guys normally, though, do they take that step to do that driving job before they go to lieutenant? Is that normally how, or am I completely out of line saying that?
No. So we had a lot of guys for a long time that were that saw driving the fire apparatus as their ticket to get off the ambo. And a lot of times it worked. So if you had it and the other person didn't, they were going to medic and you were going on the engine to drive. And a lot of people did that. I think a lot of people now that have been promoted, because we had a pretty rapid shift in promoting a lot of people over the last 5 years, 6 years. A lot of people are looking back and like, man, I should have been a turned in driver, because they're going back and their drivers are coming to them and telling them about problems. And they're like, all right, so what?
Never had to deal with that. Yeah.
If you were a
sure.
driver, you could understand why that was a big deal.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
I never was I got cleared to drive and I was a backup driver, but I was never a promoted driver. So I took the
Okay.
specialist route because they always got to ride in the back seat and I never had to argue about getting a nozzle. So.
There you go.
Do the tillers have 2 assigned drivers?
Yes. Yep. They have a FADO for the
They're both
front,
assigned.
FADO for the back. And all those stations, for the most part, some of them have dedicated truck crews, but other stations, it depends on the shift and the captain, but they'll rotate. So you'll do a month driving the front, do a month driving the back, and then rotate to
Oh,
the
nice.
engine. Yeah.
Okay. That's keeps you pretty well versed then, I would
Yeah.
say.
Mhm.
Good. We want to circle back to the military a little
Well,
bit.
we
I was
got-
going to ask you a little bit about leadership and stuff like that, but obviously you've had plenty of that with growing up in the fire service and then the military career side. So you did your 4 active duty years,
Yep.
and then how did it go about transition into the Guard?
So I did not care for my active duty time. I liked the East Coast. I was stuck in Albuquerque. I was promised travel that never occurred. But I got to go to Kuwait.
See the
in
world,
2000.
See the world.
Yeah. I got to go to Kuwait in 2001. I got back September 1st of 2001, and 9/11 happened.
Yeah.
I was set to ETS or get out the following August. And at that point, they were doing away with my job at that base. So they were shipping us all over the place, and they had made a lot of promises about you're not going to have to extend, you're not going to have to do all this, and that ended up not really fabricating, or it was made up because they wanted me to extend my enlistment 18 months to go to another base. And at that point, I just got married. A lot of things had changed. I was ready to come home. So came home. Didn't even know about the Air National Guard. A friend of mine that was in the fire department said, "Hey, why don't you check this out?" And I went down there. At that time, the firehouse was full. They didn't have any open spots for me. The state had a guard requirement, so in order to stay a civilian employee at the airport, you had to stay in the Air National Guard. So people just stayed there forever, would never leave. But ended up being a structures person. I ended up like building stuff for our civil engineer squadron for about a year. Never actually made it to our tech school for that because Katrina hit. And I got yanked up and they said, all right, we're taking you back to the firehouse. You're already done. You're certified. We're good. So yeah, that was like 2003, 2004-ish. And it's been a roller coaster ever since. It's been awesome. Ups and downs with that place. So,
What's your current rank that you hold right now?
so I am a Chief Master Sergeant. I put that on 2 years ago. I'm the military fire chief. So it's kind of a different situation. You have basically two firehouses, fire departments running out of one firehouse. So on the weekends, when we have drill, I show up and it's my firehouse and we run our troops. And then throughout the week, Monday through Friday, and on the weekends when we're not there, there's a civilian fire department that's there all the time. So,
Okay.
Do
Yep.
you and Baker, because he's the same, or that's your rank too, isn't it? Yeah. Do you guys have a secret handshake?
we can't tell you. That's kidding.
It's classified.
Secret. So, yeah. Yeah, because Baker's. So yeah, because we've had members, well, and Rab's experience and guys on our department and stuff. We've kind of with the 185th here, we kind of have a good understanding, a good grasp on the because we had Chief Albright here that was the military side, the guard side chief and the civilian side chief. And now he's retired from the military, so he's just the civilian side of stuff. And then Ryan here's the military side fire chief and stuff. So we kind of got a good understanding. So where just kind of some of your favorite places that you've deployed with the fire department? Because that was pretty impressive when Chief Albright was here talking about the deployments and the places where he has to, like when you go to Jordan or someplace like that, and you have to design an airport fire station where there's nothing, it's kind of cool stuff or doing it. So we're kind of some of your favorite places to deploy.
Honestly, the best deployment I ever had was Iraq. It was probably the tightest knit group of people that I've ever gotten to deal with. Just we were getting mortared every day, so you became very close to everybody that you worked with. But that was probably my favorite one. Outside of, I spent 4 months in Curacao, just down near Bonaire and Aruba, doing anti-drug missions with them. Really, it was sitting at an airport waiting for a plane to come back that may or may not show up. And I think we had like 6 calls the entire 4 months that I was there. Scuba diving every other day. It was great. And then I just came back in 2023. I did called an MPA tour as a deployment to Pearl Harbor. So I spent that time in Hawaii. They were closing the Red Hill Fuel Depot, which was a massive underground cavern of millions of gallons of fuel, 200 million gallons of fuel, and I needed a fire protection hazmat guy to go out there, and we set up basically a fire watch. So I took completely untrained people, trained them up to be at least basic firefighters. We sent them through submarine firefighting school, and they were they were fire watchers. So they had to walk the tunnel, which was 3 miles. So they had to walk it 2 or 3 times a day with some fire gear on and an air pack. They're not on air, but they had to walk the tunnel wearing all this stuff in case something happened, because they were moving millions of gallons of fuel every day through these 24-inch pipes. There was a lot of stuff that was repaired. A lot of stuff that they said was repaired years before we got there. They had to go through and fix all that stuff. So they're very, very, very concerned with moving all this. It was gravity fed, so once it started, it wasn't going to stop until it was
and no stopping that. Yep. Wow.
Hey, you completely glossed over Kuwait in 2014, but that's okay. When were you in Iraq and what base?
So I was at Balad. I was there in 2010, 2011, right over Christmas. So that was a good trip. I think it was a tour or two after us actually closed the base down. So it was cool because they basically said any buildings that we have, we don't care, just do whatever you want with them. So we were doing live fire training and doing everything that we could until our commander got mad at us, told us we weren't allowed to do that anymore.
You said anything.
But Kuwait, I've been there 3 times. I said 01. I was there in 14 with Baker. He was my rescue crew chief and my station captain. And then over that trip, I got sent down to Al Jaber, and we reopened that to it's I don't know, about an hour's drive away from the base we were at. We went down there, reopened that from a warm status, and had Marine firefighters and Air Force firefighters working together for the rest of the time that we were there. And it was a whole coalition air forces. It was Italy, you name whatever country, France, all these different jet fighters were all sitting on a ramp, along with the Marines, along with the U.S. Air Force. And that was a challenge because we didn't really have internet access. So we're trying to figure out, we'd have to go talk to the crew chief. Sorry, how do we get people out of these things? And then there was language barriers. They had to go find somebody to translate. And then there was a whole information sharing thing. They didn't really want to share information with us. The Canadians were there. They were great. They brought their own little contingent of firefighters. I think they had 4 or 5. but they weren't effective enough or had enough equipment in order to be an effective firefighting force. So they relied on us to do all that sort of stuff. The one night we went out on a Danish F-16, and the pilot climbs down out of his plane. He had a motor problem. He comes over, sits in the car. He says, "Okay, take me back to my tent." I'm not a taxi. I'm the chief.
Yeah.
But that was how they were used to operating. So there's a bunch of those little cultural differences that were going on there. It was really cool. But yeah, the Navy would come in with jets off the carriers that had problems, and then they'd land and we'd goof off with them. But it's been an interesting ride. The Marines were a different creature. We all went through the same DoD fire academy. We all had the same training. But when they got into their sections and out in the field, they focus primarily on crash. They don't, on their bases, their Marines only do crash. So our Air Force's, the Air Force crash trucks, all the booster lines have been swapped out with 1.75 inch. And this was pretty foreign to them. They were used to using that booster line, using a roof turret to do whatever. So we spent our first probably 6 weeks that we were together just spinning everybody up on structural firefighting, how to use these different hand lines, this deployment was a problem. They were used to hose reel and just go and not realizing that, all right, this is folded in here. We actually have to lay this out a little bit first.
Pull it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But after that,
Cool.
those guys were great. They were awesome.
Awesome.
Are you looking at after your time as fire chief going to group chief or command chief, state command chief, or are you kind of done at the end of your time?
No, I have about 14 months left. So October of next year is about when I'm looking at retirement from the Guard. That'll give me 28 years, and that's about enough.
That's enough. That's
Yeah.
enough.
How many more years do you have with the county, with Baltimore?
So with county, they allow me to count my military time. I can go now. So my retirement's the standard retirement's a 25-year retirement. They allow me to use my military time to get to that if I want to. But yeah, I had plans of going to the U.S. Fire Administration. Those kind of put a hold on a lot of that stuff.
Sure.
But that's okay. So I just hang around. My plan right now is to do about 8 more years. That'll give me physical 30 years, plus 4 years in military and my sick time that I can use, and that'll give me a pretty significant drop check and most of my pension.
Good for you, Chief.
Yeah, nice. So back to kind of differences and stuff. So out on the East Coast versus Midwest and stuff. I mean, are you guys, your department, you guys running smooth bores, or are you guys fog nozzle kind of guys?
So we actually just got in the last 5 years they switched to one hand line on every engine's a smooth bore, but they also got low pressure fog nozzles. So some guys were really against going to these fog nozzles or going to smooth bores, and they wanted to have the option. So it's a low pressure, it's a 180 gallon a minute, 50 psi fog tip Elkhart, with a slug tip inside of it. So if you really pull the wrong one, you really wanted to use a smooth bore that day, and you grabbed the wrong one, or you ended up with the wrong one, you can always spin that tip off, and you're right back
Awesome.
in action.
Yeah. We need to look into those.
We've had discussions and stuff here recently and stuff, especially with the low pressure nozzle and the hose too. That's the big thing, is that low pressure, that different hose where it's the coefficients and stuff, where he said 6.5 versus our 1.75 like 15.5 coefficient and stuff. So friction loss and stuff, and just be able to actually get more gallonage with less pressure, less nozzle reaction.
That way
to be able
you can
to
pump
move
your
faster.
smooth bore and your fog the same pretty much if
Exactly.
you want to. Takes the dummy effect kind of out of that.
Yep,
Where
yep.
right
So
now
really,
we're
that all
running-
came about when we got new apparatus. We ended up getting we bought a bunch of new Pierce apparatus, and the hose and nozzle committee worked really hard to lay this all out ahead of time, because they were all coming with whatever we asked for. So they asked for I want to say it's Mercedes is what they're running as far as hose goes. So that they did all this in one fell swoop. And the cool thing was we got so many engines at one time that we standardized all the engines as far as hose loads, which leading up to that point, you would walk into a firehouse like, okay, well, how do you guys do this? and some guys were pulling off the back, some of them were using a cross lay, some of them were going off the front bumper. But now everything for the most part is pretty standardized across the fleet. We just did a press event the other day. They spent $40 million upgrading fire apparatus in the last 2 years. So
Wow.
it's
Wow,
been an
that's awesome.
incredible amount of work that's gone into these things.
I would imagine the linemen are pretty happy with that.
They are.
Yeah.
And there's a constant complaint. Firefighters complain about everything.
Of course.
But the cab's too tight. It's too small. But all the engines now are standardized. And a lot of these, you could outfit a rescue squad with some of the stuff that these engine companies were carrying.
Sure.
But all that stuff's been reduced down to bare minimum. What you need to do is your job as an engine company. If you need help, call for help. There was a very independent streak that was going through the department of, we're not calling anybody. We're just going to handle it ourselves.
Oh yeah. Yep. That pride rig. Yep.
I know one big East Coast difference Chief Schwartz talked to me about is they're big into the European helmets there. They're really going east. So
Super east.
I'm going to see you in a couple of weeks, right?
Everybody's just rocking the European. Well,
No.
I know we're still against it, but I mean, all I'm going to say is the Europeans were fighting fires for 100 years, a couple hundred years before we were and stuff. So
And then they stopped and started wearing weird helmets.
Yeah, they did. I don't understand that weird helmets. But then they probably look at us and like, look at the Americans with that weird helmet on and stuff. Why don't they do this? But
I'd dump that boat.
Yeah.
Just like we dumped the tea in the harbor, I'd dump those European helmets right in the harbor too. That's what I would do.
I will. Yeah, I'll be long gone up that. Yeah, no.
We do have a couple of instructors, the guys that'll go sit in a burn building for 8 hours a day. Those guys will wear them, and they love them. But they won't wear them on a fire call. They'll only wear them in the academy or run in the burn building. So
it's a good place for them. Good place
for them. It is
them.
a good place for them.
What? How old is your oldest firehouse?
Oh, so I think it was 1917. The Catonsville Fire Station.
So cool.
So it was built as a combination police station, fire station, and over time it's evolved to about 80% fire station and then 20% congressman's office. So it's really tight. They actually run 2 engine companies out of that firehouse. They're stacked front to back. Along with a medic unit and a brush unit, and it's snug getting inside of there. They're supposed to break ground on a new fire station the end of this year to replace that one, and then that one is supposed to become our fire museum for the county.
Cool.
Oh, neat.
Very cool.
Yeah. So I guess your station's kind of like us, probably. A lot of them they get remodeled and redone and stuff over the years and everything. But yeah, there's something to be said about old firehouses, and then just the guys that work there and everything, and just the tradition, all this stuff that's in them and everything. So yeah, that's pretty awesome.
So with your shift schedule then, are there bedrooms in the stations?
Oh.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. That's been the only remodel that we've had recently, besides they started redoing a kitchen at one of our stations. They started putting in female locker rooms and showers because we never had them. So they've gone around, they've made a countywide effort to go around and update all these stations, put in a female locker room, female bathrooms, and they've been doing that because they have to eat up a lot of the current bunk room to do that. They put in divider walls, so they don't go all the way to the ceiling, but they're
so just like cubicles.
They're like 5 foot, 6 foot walls. So,
Yep.
But that saved them on having to put in 15 different air conditioners and all this other stuff. But a lot of our fire stations were built in the 60s, the ones that are around the Beltway, which goes all the way around the metro area. So when they built these things, a lot of them are they're almost twin. So one station is built almost just like another. Unfortunately, we lacked on upgrading them for a long time. So we could still have single pane windows in a lot of the walls. It's been slow coming, trying to get a lot of this stuff taken care of. They have plans in the works for a new Station 57, which is down by the Sparrows Point, which used to be the steel plant and is now a major industrial area as far as commercial hubs. Home Depot's got their port there. All this different stuff's coming in there. So when that's built, that'll take the current Station 57 out of the academy, which is kind of where they're stuck at. And they'll have a fireboat, a truck, and a medic out of there. Right now, it's just a single engine gun in their unit.
Cool.
So you said you run your shifts. So you're running 7 to 5, and then 5 to 7 to 5, and then 5 to 7. Right?
Yep.
So on that 5 to 7 is that 14 hours. So that overnight shift, then the guys are allowed to rack out and sleep and stuff. It's not like you have to be up like an overnight. So I guess, what does your day look like? Because I know you mentioned something about, that 10-hour shift and stuff, and or the 24-hour come in trying to get inspections and training and everything else. That 10 hours, like, it's like yesterday. I
feel like there's not enough hours in the day as
right, because you get
your
so
24, so I couldn't imagine. Yeah.
No, yeah, because you get in, you start, and our shifts start at 8. We're running 8 to 8, but I mean, you get your rig checks done in the morning, get your gear on, clean the firehouse, have our teams meeting in the morning. Then we had training, for a couple hours for multi-care, and then you got lunch, and then I went inspect in the afternoon.
Yeah.
Like by the time we got back to the station, and settled down, it's 4:30 and stuff, but that'd be it, and you'd get nothing else done then. So I mean, what does your guys', I guess, your day look like on training hours, things like that? What do you guys running?
So, like I said, a lot of our folks come in early, so they're 5:30, 6 o'clock. They're getting in the door. Apparatus checks usually take an hour. They get in there to get all that stuff taken care of. While they're doing that, the officers making sure that they have enough staffing for relief for the evening crew coming in, and then anything that needs to get taken care of. So if the driver finds a problem wrong, the shop's open at 6 a.m. so they can run up there and get that taken care of. And then 9 a.m. is usually housework time. For the most part, it's pretty quick, 15, 20 minutes, an hour at the most, getting housework taken care of. First day is all taking care of all that sort of stuff. Second day is like we've watched it, apparatus and all that sort of stuff. And then after 9 o'clock, it's they'll have inspections planned to go out and do mercantile inspections. And that's one of the reasons that we had the brush units, was a specialist can take the brush unit and go out and do inspections on their own, which allows everybody else to kind of take care of everything else. And then spring season, we have hydrants that have to get done, so we go out and do maintenance on hydrants. And there's a whole map that everybody's got to do. I know the one station I worked at one point, they broke all the hydrants up amongst each of the people that were there, and I think I had 150 hydrants I had to go check that summer, which was great because I'd go out early in the morning and I was going all day. I'd go check hydrants. And then, squeeze in calls in between all this stuff. And it's a common complaint that I hear from my officers. I just don't have enough time in the day to get all this stuff done, because at 3 o'clock, people's reliefs are starting to show up and they're leaving. So training gets squeezed in amongst all that different stuff, along with whatever else has to get done. Night works are actually my favorite, because I go in at 3 o'clock. I do whatever paperwork has to get taken care of, make sure staffing's good. Usually we all have shift dinner, and then at 9 o'clock by regulation, we're allowed to go to bed. Now, whether that happens or not is call dependent.
Right. Sure.
Yep.
Well, cool.
Yeah. And we say the same thing. Well, there's just not enough time in the day, not enough. I mean, at least my arguments sometimes where we're doing stuff, it's like, well, we're here for 24 hours. We can, we can figure out and make time or shift things. Or it's like, yeah, you got to work past 4:30 or 5 on this day. Well, then the next day we'll cut off early and get stuff done. But yeah, when your relief is showing up and like, no, this dude's, these guys are leaving and switch it off. Yeah, I mean, that's that would I mean that 5 of that.
You're loitering now.
Yeah, that would.
You're loitering.
But I guess you get used to what you get used to. But I mean, it's a 10-hour day would go that time would, especially when you're throwing runs and everything else in there. That
I'm sure guys are praying for those night shifts.
Yeah, in a hurry. So,
like, when's my night rotation?
Any kind of memorable calls, Chief, over the years and stuff, that anything that sticks out about you, or I guess and two, what's your, as far as your position, did you like being a captain, on the rig more? Do you like being the command? I mean, what's, what kind of, some of your favorite calls, memorable calls, just position wise, what's kind of your favorite stuff to do?
So the worst thing about promoting is that you go from a participant to a spectator. You're still controlling everything, but you don't get to really go inside and do a whole lot anymore. At least not the way that our current model works. Some of the other departments are the second in chief will end up going inside. Unfortunately, we just don't have the personnel right now to do that. But that's probably the hardest part is I now have to stay outside and command and direct this whole fireground thing. But my favorite position was either running as a backup driver, or specialist, because basically I got to go inside on everything. But lieutenant was cool too. Captain was okay. At that point all of a sudden that burden of the station life that kind of falls on you a little bit more, and you start to realize it and feel it a little bit. Yeah, all the jobs that I ever worked in the fire department were really good. Where you had to figure out a way to make it good, or you weren't going to last. So right now, even with our 2 days, 2 nights, 4 off, with being a battalion chief, we're salaried. So in between our days and nights, we're basically on call. So now we've gone from a 48-hour shift to a 96-hour. All right, yeah, you're just dedicated to us. And you have to make the best out of it. You just work things in and around the best that you can. But yeah, I like it. Probably one of the most interesting calls that I had, and this may sound stupid to a lot of people that do wildland, but we had about a 600-acre wildland fire about 2 years ago, which, you go out west, like, oh, it's only 600 acres. It's nothing. For us,
600 acres to us is a lot.
That's a lot.
For us, we're used to a field on fire that's 2 or 3 acres, and that's a lot. So it was a May day 2 years ago. It was hot and dry, and we had crown fires, which I'd never seen before.
Oh man!
Oh yeah.
So I pull up as the battalion chief, just being nosy, because they'd gone out on this fire. They'd had a day before. They'd gone out there and had about 50 acres, and then this thing pops off, and I get out there and I'm just calling for everything in the world. I asked for helicopters, which finally I got approved, which was the first one in our department's history that we called for an airdrop and actually got it got them to come out and do it.
Wow.
So that was cool. Ended up going 7 alarms worth of equipment.
Wow.
Yeah, which was kind of a misnomer, because after like the third one, they just started putting 2 engines on them, and they called that an alarm.
Yeah.
But because at the time when the first, second, and third alarm, they were trying to put full structural alarm assignments on this stuff. So 4 engines, 2 trucks, all this stuff. Like, send the ladder trucks home. I don't need them. So
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
We're not climbing anything.
yeah. So that was cool. We had a tractor trailer that went across the interstate last year that the guy hit a tree head on. It took us about 2.5 hours to get him out of there. Come to find out, that was the second time that he had done something very similar. He fell asleep, went straight across the interstate, jumped the median, and went into a tree about 6 feet up in the air.
Good Lord.
But we had the shock trauma, the trauma hospital down the road in Baltimore. They brought their go team out with the helicopter. They ended up giving them blood products in the truck while we were still working on getting them out.
Wow.
Ended up having to cut the box of the truck out of the back of the cab to basically remove. He was about 350 pounds. So we had the good thing that the truck was pretty much empty. The only thing he had in there was a pallet jack. So we had to cut the whole back out of the box of the truck and then remove him that way. But yeah, he was walked out of the hospital about 3 days later. So,
Wow.
That's
yeah.
crazy.
Amazing.
Did you guys, the truck companies carry the extrication tools, or do you have or does the rescue carry that?
So all of our truck companies are set up with the basics for auto and rope rescue. The squad companies that we have in the county, I believe there's 5 or 6 of them. They're all run by the volunteers. And then one of them, Lutherville, has a crane on top of their squad that they can use. Wow. It's pretty unique. They don't have a whole lot of them anymore. But yeah, the volunteers, they do a decent job of getting out. We had a CAD system shift about 2 years ago, and it's kind of put a hurting on them, because now instead of people running from home to go get on fire apparatus and go on calls, they have to call ahead of time and basically say that they're on duty, that they have enough staffing to send an apparatus out, which is why our call numbers on the career side have jumped up so much.
Sure.
If the volunteer station down the road doesn't have a crew on duty, despite them
They're
having
browned out then?
They're browned out. Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
And it's getting harder and harder there too. Obviously, you'd know that more than anyone. To just with the numbers, trying to maintain that volunteer number that's got to be just a burden in itself and a whole animal in itself. So.
Well, the way the Maryland works and just the certification system is to get somebody in the door with no training and get them to be qualified enough to either ride an engine or an ambulance. You're talking about almost a year's worth of training and time just to get them set up and ready to roll. It's just it's the burden's getting to be too much as far as certifications goes, requirements for all the bloodborne and all the other stuff.
Sure.
Stuff that 20 years ago we didn't even bother with. There's all right, fire engine, get on. Yeah. Now you have to be certified. You have to have your pad tags. You have to have all this stuff, which is not a bad thing. Don't get me wrong. It's a good that we have requirements and people are trained, but it definitely puts the burden back on the membership to try and get those people turned in.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Is there any talk of making more of those positions a career then?
No, not right now. It's a political issue at that point because the volunteers are still pretty strong with the politics. And there's been some of the volunteer companies have reached out to the career side and say, hey, we need help. Can you provide X, Y, and Z, EMTs, whatever? So what the county did was a couple of years ago, they started subsidizing volunteers to pay people to ride their ambulances. So part-time help, which they run this kind of same overtime schedule, or not overtime, but the peak time schedule, that 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. They'll pay, I don't know, it's like $50 an hour that they pay the company, and the company will pay any two EMTs or whoever to ride their ambulance during the day. So that's how they've gotten around hiring more career people. They just subsidize the volunteer system.
Yep.
Nice. Chief, any advice, like some knowledge bombs or anything like that you would, give to new guys starting out, whether it's just in the fire service in general, or the military, or Baltimore County specific, but any words of wisdom from the battalion chief?
Actually wrote some notes down, believe that or not. So the biggest thing that I can give anybody is get into the job. I'm not expecting you to go home and live and breathe this stuff all day long and be looking at Firehouse Magazine and all this other stuff on your time off. But when you're in the firehouse, just be present, be into the job, and learn everything that you absolutely can about it. Because at the end of the day, if something goes bad, you rely on your brothers and sisters to take care of you, but you have to have that head game in there enough that understand that, well, if I do this, then this is going to happen, or if I don't do this, then this is going to happen. So, be engaged is probably the biggest thing. Other than that, just learn everything that you can, and it's not just firefighter specific or military specific or anything like that. But if your job is firefighting and you have a lot of balloon frame construction houses in your district, understand how that fire is going to progress. Commercial building, same thing. How is that fire going to progress? And how do I keep myself, one, that I can stop whatever fire happens in there if you can, but two, how do I stay alive in the process? So that's probably one of the bigger takeaways that I have. And then on top of everything else, just stay fit. And because once you get out of it, sitting in the battalion chief chair, they tend to make your hips broaden a little bit because you sit there for so long. So stay in the gym, stay active. And for me, it kind of worked out great because I could still volunteer and actually live right next to the volunteer fire company that I volunteer at. They run about 300 calls a year, so it's perfect for me. I come home, I kind of go over there and tool around, and I still get my time, nozzle time and driving time and all that sort of stuff. But just stay into it. That's the biggest thing. And the haters are going to be haters, but let them do that on their own time. So, yeah.
What do you got for hobbies? Chief? What do you do in your downtime? Because, well, if you have downtime, because it sounds like between the real job and the volunteering and military and stuff, you're kind of a busy dude. But what's your go-to kind of just, what do you like to do?
So, family and I, we like going camping. My wife loves the beach, so we try and do that as much as we can. We're about 3 hours from the beach, on the coast here. So that's kind of cool. My dad, kind of going backwards a little bit, my dad has a fire museum, and has had it
Oh,
since I was
wow.
a kid. So we got 7 fire engines. He's got 2 giant pole buildings with all this stuff in it, plus a basement full of, you know, everything you can imagine,
Man.
badges, shields, helmets, all that sort of stuff. And most of it's, for the most majority, is Baltimore related. So I really like getting into the history part of all that sort of stuff. Kind of geek out on that a little bit. But recently
Absolutely.
we picked up a 1951 Mack fire engine that was from Baltimore County.
Hmm.
It's kind of stayed around in the area for a long time, and we've been working on restoring that. So that's one of my biggest things right now. So right now I got the wood oak slats out of the hose bed in my garage, and I'm redoing all them. So that'll get
Oh
ready to
yeah.
go.
That
Yeah.
is awesome. That is fantastic.
Yeah, all the old wooden water mains and catching a plug and
Yeah.
Yeah.
the muffin bells and everything
Wooden
like that.
ladders
So,
and Iron Men.
yep, yeah, it's
So real
fantastic
quick,
stuff.
this is kind of a funny story. Is my dad found a newspaper article from Baltimore in 1910. It was a firefighter that got killed after he got thrown off of a horse. He was going out. He was a chief engineer. He was going out to do inspections on steamers. He worked in the steam plant industry before he got in the fire department, and he got killed 6 months after this accident happened. So my dad found it. We sent it to the Maryland Fallen Firefighters Foundation. They tracked down his great great granddaughter and 2 of her long lost cousins that they had never met each other. And 2 weeks ago, we had them at the memorial in Annapolis, and they went down. The family showed up. They got treated just like somebody who, fallen firefighters family that died last month. They had to
Wow.
go put their family member's name on the wall, and full honors. It was
That's
really
incredible.
That is amazing.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
actually, that chief engineer, the chief engineer badge. So we have the chief engineer badge, the Kellogg's badge that Jim Jung had donated and stuff that he found. So actually, we had determined. And I know Lindblade, they kind of done some research, but actually, chief engineer was the fire chief before they changed the title to fire chief. Was that
Right.
chief engineer? So we have, if you didn't know, with Sioux City, I mean, Patty and Prince with the world record holders for the bunk and hitch world championships, but Chief Kellogg was the longest serving fire chief in history anywhere, serving as chief
Oh
for
wow.
50 years. We have the chief's Kellogg's badge. So chief engineer, we think, was
engineer.
the beginning of his career as fire
Yeah.
chief, was his first badge, and then of course the
Then they
chief's
changed
badge
to
that we have
chief.
now,
Yep.
that's in the shadow box that gets passed from chief to chief, is his badge from
Oh
the end
wow.
of his career when he retired. But yeah, Chief Kellogg, 50 years as just fire chief. So he saw
Wow.
the progression from
Horses
the horses
drawn.
to the first powered engine, and powered motorized engines and stuff, and the changes that he saw in 50 years. We see how fast, even in 20 years,
Yeah.
Chief, you've seen in the last 22 years, like how just SCBA's, thermal imagers, gear, hoses, apparatus and stuff, and how much change. You can imagine in 50 years in the fire service, like how much
Especially at
change and progression.
turn of the
stuff.
century, and
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, no, I love the history stuff too, and the reason, to go back again to why we say the things we do, and to like dive back to that, to be like, well, this is why we, this is where this term came from, or this is why we did this, or why we do this, and it's really cool. So, who besides Ryan Baker here, who helped shape your military and fire service career? Any mentors out there that really stand out to you?
So I had a lot. It's obviously you don't get where I'm at without having help. Um, so probably the biggest influence on me coming up through this whole process was my dad and my grandfather. Um, Dad's been, if something goes bad at work, I call him because he's like the foundation of, don't be stupid. Um, but my grandfather was always that guy. Kept, you got to keep moving up. This isn't a young man's job. You got to keep moving up, because if you don't, you're never going to last. You're going to be broken by the time you're 40, and you're not going to be able to do this. And that, like you said, he did 40 years in the city fire department. The guy never wore an air mask, which ultimately ended up killing him of lung cancer. But The city had worn the Chemox mask, and he had a bad experience the first time that they put him in service, and he never wore one again. But he was that, and I still hear stories about him from the city firefighters that have retired now, that he was the kindest, gentlest, most accepting person of everything until you screwed up, and he would put you on the right track and make sure that you were doing the right thing. But so that was a lot. My wife and my son and my daughters, just for putting up with me being gone all the time and deployments and everything else. They've been huge. I don't know where I'd be right now without my wife actually supporting me with some of this stuff. And she never wanted anything to do with the fire service. And we moved next door to this fire station, and she went over and got her EMTs, and now she's doing that. So,
Oh, cool.
Fantastic.
yeah.
You
But I had a
corrupted her.
couple
Good job, Chief. Good
Yeah.
job.
Couple captains, Captain Brooks and Captain Sipes. So Captain Brooks was the hazmat captain, and he, like I said, he got me involved with a lot of things. Captain Sipes, who retired from the Marine Corps, he was a sergeant at 8th and I. He was that drill sergeant guy that never put up with anybody's crap. You would walk into the office and like, hey, you didn't do this. Here's your paperwork. I'll just sign here and be on your way. And it was very just matter of fact about everything. But he was hilarious to work with, because being military, you could get away with different things. It's with joking around with him that some folks that weren't military could not. But I also had, when I was a captain, my senior man, Bruz, Charles Nichols, he was the lead problem solver for the firehouse. I never had to go to anybody else. I never had to go to paperwork. I would say something to Bruz and it would just get taken care of. So that he was amazing. And then between Chief Vines from the military side and Jason Hearn, who was my military chief for a while, those two, Jason taught me patience because I had none. He was in Iraq with me, and we spent a lot of time together. And he'd get on me all the time. Stop getting mad about stuff. It's not worth it. Just deal with it. And to this day, I still call him for advice about different stuff. He's been retired for a while, but yeah. And then right now it's my cohort on the other side of the county is Chief Hill. So him and I bounce ideas off of each other. He's that phone a friend if anything goes on. You need some advice and just to talk each other off the ledge. So.
Nice. Yeah. So I know you kind of mentioned your family a little bit, but anything else? Because this is, we always tell people this is kind of like an archive. It'll live on the interwebs for a while and stuff. So anything you want to say for your kids or grandkids and
wife and how many kids and where they at, what ages?
So my wife, Monica, I won't tell you how old she is. She'll be mad at me. She's older than I am. My son, Fred, he'll be 16 in November. He just got home from school. My daughter Emma just graduated from Towson University in just north of Baltimore. My daughter JC, she's a human resources specialist with one of the Pinnacle Health up in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. And my stepson Braden, who's a shop foreman for a trucking company, mechanic. So, and then I got 2 grandkids. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Any message you want to leave for them, especially the grandkids and stuff, because they'll be like, oh, here, grandpa's on YouTube.
Grandpa's on the interwebs.
Yeah.
Wow.
Just thank you for being supportive of me chasing my dreams, and they may not understand it right now because they're pretty young, but follow what you want to do. Career day was always cool in school because everybody's, I don't know what I want to do. I always knew what I wanted to do, and nobody was going to talk me out of it. But get a goal and figure out how you're going to get to where you want to be, and then just drive through it. That's all you can do. If you find something you love to do, it may be stressful and you may not like every day that you go there, but it's always enjoyable to get there. And especially with our job, you get there, you get to hang out with the folks in the station, and if you have a good shift and a good crew, they can make your day or they can break your day. But there's a YouTube video floating around about there's no place you'd rather be after a rough day is just getting busted up in a kitchen, and even being a chief, that table is fair game. So, and that's what I tell a lot of my younger leaders that are coming in as new officers is get that station in order, because that's your team, that's your base. And build that station cohort, that you have people that you can go back and tell them anything, and it won't leave the table, and you won't be judged for it. You're going to get beat up for it, but you won't be judged for it. But that's going to keep you sane and being able to do this job for as long as we do.
Nice. That's
Very good.
Good words.
Solid.
So from the East Coast Battalion Chief. Hey, Chief, what just real quick and stuff, favorite movie or TV show about firefighting?
So Backdraft was always my favorite. I was like
Yep.
probably 12 or 13 when it came out, and it was like
Oh,
the
man.
first rated R movie I was allowed to go watch.
Pete.
So yeah, I still love that. I don't know, fire department stuff. Emergency was always a big thing. I have the whole rerun box set. Yeah. There's probably one oddball that most people would never watch is Mother Jugs and Speed.
Mother Jugs and Speed. Oh yeah, there you go. Yep.
Bill Cosby
Nice.
movie, which that turned into what it turned into, but it was still hilarious.
Yep.
And the private ambulance industry that I got into after I got out of active duty wasn't much different. It was pretty much that.
That's like bringing out the dead with the private ambulance service and stuff. Is yeah, fantastic. So and I know it's Baltimore City, not Baltimore County, but Ladder 49, is that a that's kind of how it is, or is that just like an eye roll session for you guys, being that like you're from that area?
No, it's pretty much how it is. Those guys are pretty tight, and then the pranks that they played in the movie are stuff that I know happens. Yeah. As a matter of fact, in Ladder 49, all the stuff that's behind John Travolta's desk is all stuff that they rented from my dad.
Wow.
So
No way.
Yeah.
That's pretty awesome.
Got a prop company going on.
Prop company.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
Holy cow. Prop company.
The running joke was he didn't give him anything that he wasn't expecting on getting back, because he didn't get any of it back. But it was all like junky stuff that he had laying around in his shed. So
yeah.
That's cool.
Nice. Well, I will spare you this time, Chip. I will. So don't worry about it.
We already know he doesn't care.
Yeah. So, anything else? You got anything else for the Chief? I know, like, we want to keep you on your schedule, Chief, because I know you're a busy guy and stuff. So, what, Chip? You got anything else?
No, just thanks for the time. It's been fun. This has been great. It's nice getting to know you and talk more. And Rab's got nothing but good stuff to say about you, believe it or not. So everything's true. So thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me on. This is pretty cool.
Yeah.
As far as movie goes, World Trade Center 2006, Nick Cage could be.
Well, I know Nick Cage is your favorite. So.
Well, speaking about Nick, it was on last night. I had to put on for the guys because it was late last night. But Sean Connery, Nicolas Cage, the same movie.
Man.
And being a hazmat guy, I mean, come on, how do you not watch The Rock? Come on,
The Rock.
This way,
The Rock.
Come on. Yep.
Thanks again, Chief, and see you in Reno next month.
Very good. Thank you very much. I appreciate you guys having me on and listening to me ramble for an hour long we've been here.
Yeah, no, it's been amazing, Chief, and I will give Baker more credit than I originally wanted to as far as getting this stream, and it actually worked the whole time. Yeah. No technical difficulties. Has been amazing. So good shout out to Rab for putting this together and making the contacts and stuff for you to have you on. It's been really awesome. So we appreciate it immensely.
It's been great to meet you guys, and hopefully we'll see you around.
All right.
Sounds good.
Chip.
Ready? Drop the tones, Ryan.